everyone and welcome to my craft room. I'm Leo from inkymemories.co.uk, an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in South Wales. And today on this Tip Tuesday video we're going to be looking at colouring techniques again. This is part 3 in a 3-part series all about different colouring techniques and the different products available in Stampin' Up's range. To do this, so if you haven't seen the others, do go back and check those out. I'll pop a card up for you so you can find those videos. But today we're going to be looking at the messier side, which is why I have a lot of extra grid paper around my surface today. We'll start off clean and we'll get messier as we go on. So all of the products that I'm going to be showing you today can be found in the Colouring Tools range, and this is page 146 to 147 in the annual catalogue. So we're going to be looking at quite a few of the different things that are available on this page. Now the Colouring Tools section spans from page 142 in fact. So first of all you have in here all of your ink that is available and your combo blends, your stamping blends pens are available on all of these pages in all of the different colours that they're available in. You then have all of the markers and watercolour pencils shown on here, as well as the re-inkers that we've used in a previous video. And then today, this is all of the extra goodies. There's lots of fun stuff in here. So for example, we have embossing paste. We're definitely going to be doing some of that in a later video. You've got things like the Shimmery Ink, and again, we're going to be looking at some of that today. You've got your water painters in here. We've also got the Spritz Ink bottles, which we will be looking at today, different sponge products and lots of different ways of colouring and adding colour to your project. So let us look closer at some of these options. Now the first thing that we're going to look at today is going to be the sponge daubers. Now these are basically just little sponges on plastic tips that you pop onto the end of your finger, or you can just hold them if you don't like doing that, and you can use them to add colour to your project. You can also use these actually to add colour to a stamp. So if you want to do kind of a varied or gradient sort of look on a stamp, you can use the sponge daubers to add colour to your stamp, and then you'll be able to do that. And I'll pop another card up just now of a project that I actually did that in recently, so you can see how that works. But for today I have a stamped image here. This is from the Bloom and Grow stamp set. Here I've just taken this one. I'm just going to colour this in first of all using the sponge daubers so you can see how they work. Now I have in my craft room an IKEA trolley that I use to store a lot of my craft supplies that I use very regularly, which is why they're in this little magnetic tin. It just sticks onto the side of my trolley, and it also helps to keep them nice and neat and out of the way, because once they have ink on the end of them you don't really want them rolling around in your craft room. Now what I've done is pull out a couple of different ink pads, all from the In Colour ranges in fact. So I have here Terracotta Tile, Rococo Rose, which is a bit stiff, there we go. You can tell I don't use this one often enough, I need to use that more, note to self. And also Just Jade. And all I'm going to do is take my daubers, so I have one that has green on it already. I'm just going to press this into the surface of my ink pad, tap some of the ink off to the side just so I know how much I've got on there, and then just lightly add ink to all of the areas that I want to be green on my project. Now obviously this is not precise colouring. Sponge daubers are quite wide, as you can see. They're not a small narrow sort of sponge, so you are going to have quite a lot of ink going down with these, but I quite like the effect that this gives as well. That sort of green haze around the outside. And then if I switch to a slightly peachier one, let's do some terracotta in here. Again, I'm just tapping the dauber onto the surface of my ink pad, tapping it off so I can see how dark the colour is, and then using that to build up colour on my stamped image. And of course you can use sort of different pressures and so on to add more or less ink, and then keep adding ink to the center of your flowers to sort of build up the shading in there. I'm going to grab one more. Let's do a little bit of the Rococo Rose. So let's get that inked up and see how that's looking. Okay. And again, just using the sponge to add colour. And going back in with a little bit more if you want to darken it up in the centre. And you can also blend inks together using the Daubers. So if I grab some of the pink here, I'll pop it into the centre of that flower. And I'll go back to my orangey one. And we can blend those two colours together on that flower and make it slightly different. So you can see you can build up a really nice sort of soft look using the sponge Daubers on a stamped image. But also you can use them just to make patterns if you want to. So using the Daubers and just literally sponging them down onto the surface of your cardstock. It's a nice circular image, and you could build up some fun backgrounds, make your own, design a series paper or backgrounds for a card, just using the spots, or you could even do stripes across your paper if you wanted to. And because it is a sponge, you are going to get varying amounts of ink and that sort of sponged look as part of that as well. So that is sponge Daubers, a very quick look at those. I use them quite a lot for adding colour to the edges of cardstock. That's something that you can also do with them. Let me just grab that back out and I'll show you how I do that. So if you want to maybe not have such a harsh white line on the edge of your project, you can take your sponge Dauber and pop it in the ink and then just run it down the edge of your cardstock, and you can see that that starts to then bring in colour onto the edge and slightly over the front of the cardstock if you angle your sponge Dauber in that way. And that can help also sort of break up the harsh edges in your project if you are doing something a bit softer you want to do that in. Or you can antique it, if you were to use like a grey or a beige kind of ink, such as, let's see, crumb cake for example, or soft suede, something in that sort of colour range. You could then sort of antique or age the edges of your cardstock to give that impression as well. So that is, like I said, a very quick look at sponge Daubers and the different things that you can do with them. I'm sure you can think of so many other ways to use those. Let me pop these ink pads out of the way and we shall move into the next product. So the next product that I have then are the stamping sponges. So these are large, round, yellow, fairly open textured sponges, and they come in a pack of 3. And I quite often cut these up into smaller pieces, which again I keep in one of these tins on my trolley, so I can be a bit more precise with where I'm putting ink. But these work pretty much the same way as the sponge Daubers. You can use them to add ink to projects, to 3D pieces that you're putting together, and the same again. So you take your sponge, I've got one here, let's use this one since that's got less ink on it. Sponge it into your ink pad first of all to pick up some ink, and then you can add ink to the surface of your project however you want to use it. You can use the edge or the side. Like I said, they're quite open sponges. These they are. The sponge Daubers in comparison are very fine, and these are quite sort of more open. So you are going to get a different type of look with this. When you're colouring in, you can do more sort of background colouring and building up the ink using this. And you can get it to soften as well just by adding more ink and changing how you are using the sponge. You could obviously use the whole sponge, you don't have to cut them up. I just wanted to make sure that I was using a smaller piece so I was a bit more precise with what I was doing. And again, you can make some really nice blended backgrounds using these sponges. I have ink all over my fingers, that's just to be anticipated today. But yes, you can make some really nice blended backgrounds using the sponges, sort of just changing up how you add, using different pressure, building up more ink. But the sponges are a really nice way of building background. Certainly I've done this quite a few times on cards, made a nice blended background that's very soft and subtle, a very different look to using the stamping blends, the alcohol markers, for example. So I shall pop these out of the way. And we shall move on to the next product. Now this one is possibly one of my favourites in the colouring tools section, and these are the sponge Brayers. Now these come as a pack of 2, so you get 2 handles and 4 of the sponge rollers when you buy these, and these are really excellent for laying down colour and not getting too inky yourself, which, as you can see when you're starting to use some of these products, is definitely a hazard. Now these I've used recently on a Christmas card. I don't actually think I have any photos of it, which is really terrible of me, but I made a sort of a nighttime sky background on my Christmas card, and then put some pieces in front of it, and using the Brayers was a really excellent way of doing this. So all I'm doing is just rolling the brayer over the surface of my ink pad to pick up plenty of ink. Very similar to, I guess, how you would layer up paint onto a paint roller before you started painting. And then I'm just literally going to start rolling this over my cardstock. As you can see, this is quite fast to do. You can then obviously go back and layer more ink over the top. Now do be careful when you're doing this, they do have these plastic handles on the sides. Try not to gouge the surface of your ink pad by pressing the brayer too firmly into there. So building up more colour onto here. Just going over it. And then taking a darker colour, so I have Night of Navy here. So this is Bermuda Bay, this is Night of Navy. And again, just getting a nice even distribution of ink all the way over the surface of my brayer. And then going in and adding my darker colour over the top. You can see why I've put down extra grid paper today and why I have kitchen towel in about 4 different places around me. This is definitely the messy demonstration today. There we go. So as you can see, you know, I could keep going with this and keep building and building the layers. You could get a really nice dark sky with sort of the lighter blue at the bottom. You can do it with sunrise and sunset type backgrounds, or literally just blend backgrounds together in the same way that we did with the sponges. You know, you can start layering up ink and colour. You can also use them for making your InDesigner series paper. So if you need a background paper for your project and there isn't one in the exact colour scheme that you are wanting to put together for your project, make your own. You know, use one of these colouring techniques to build up your own background. Okay, so these are the sort of sponge products that we have looked at so far, and now it's time to get really messy. So first of all, I'm going to pull in, I have here one of our re-inkers. This is in Shaded Spruce, and this is one of our Spritzer bottles. So just little tiny bottles that you can fill with liquid with a mister cap on the end. Now what I've done with this is fill it with isopropyl alcohol. Now, when you are looking at the type of alcohol that you want to use this, you want to use 70% proof or less. Anything stronger than that, unfortunately, starts to eat away at the plastic inside, and then you'll find that your nozzle starts to gum up. So 70% or less is what you're looking for with your isopropyl alcohol. And all I've done, I filled this probably to about where this colour label is here with the alcohol, and then I add a couple of drops of ink. Now you can add more or less ink depending on the sort of strength that you are looking for, and certainly with the darker colours, so shaded spruce is quite a dark green, you definitely want to use less with that to really get the colour. If you use too much, you're just going to end up looking quite dark and sort of almost black. But just a couple of drops of ink, shake it up nicely. It will take a few shakes to get the ink to blend in, but then you can use this to spritz some cardstock. And I don't actually think I have a small piece, so we shall take a big piece. Let me just chop this down slightly for us. Apparently I didn't prepare a piece for this. Okay, and like I said, this is where it's going to get really messy, so make sure that you do protect your work surface. I've got a lot of different pieces of grid paper around me here. Make sure you've got sort of clean up stuff around you as well. Now with this, it is literally just a case of aiming and spraying and then building up as much colour as you want. Now because the ink is mixed in with alcohol, it is going to wet the surface of your paper first of all, but then the alcohol evaporates, leaving just the ink behind, which is why you mix it with alcohol and not water. If you mixed it with water, unfortunately you would then end up with quite a wet, soggy piece of cardstock that wouldn't actually dry out all that well. So there you can see it has started to curl where it has got damp, but the alcohol is already evaporating off there. And it gives you this really nice sort of mottled effect. But you can also then start to build up the ink a little bit stronger if you wanted to. Just allow it to dry in between a little bit. And this was only, I think I put 4 drops of ink into the mister for this. So your re-inker bottles are such good value. Obviously you can re-ink your ink pads with them. That is what they're designed for, but there are so many more things that you can do with them. And with making this sort of spritz bottles, you would get a lot of different spritz bottles out of one re-inker. So there you can see our sort of spritzed piece of cardstock that is just drying up in the edges there, but it's a nice way to add ink without the sort of sponged effect if you want more of a spritzed effect on there. And it's a really good way of doing this. It's a great way to add colour to the boxes, the cardboard boxes in the catalogue. So the mini playing with patterns boxes that come, the mini pizza boxes and the mini paper pumpkin boxes, and they have a white matte outside to them, so they can be coloured, and this is a great way of adding colour to those. And also obviously, as you can see, anything else that is in the vicinity when you spritz. Now the last thing that I'm going to go through today is one of the shimmer inks that we have in the catalogue. So there are 2 colours that we currently have available, Frost White, which is the one I have here, and also Champagne Mist, I believe the other one is called. Now these inks are amazing. They're basically tiny little pots. I mean, they look tiny, you get a lot in there, of just the liquid ink that also has a ton of shimmer pigment and mica in there as well. And there are lots and lots of different things that you can actually do with these, and I'm going to do a whole video just on the shimmer ink as a Tip Tuesday coming up, just of all the different ways that I've found so far of using them. I'm sure there are tons of other ways that I haven't found yet either, but these have a ball in them. You just literally shake them up before you start using them to make sure you've mixed up as much of that mica as possible. And what I've done is the same as with the shaded spruce ink. I've popped this into one of our spritzers, and you can actually see the mica has settled all along one side there. And this again is with some isopropyl or rubbing alcohol, just the 70% proof. Now with this I did the same again. I filled up my spritzer to about here, added in 1 or 2 drops. You really don't need a lot of this ink, it does go a long way. And to really show this off, I'm going to be doing a couple of things on some black cardstock to really show what this ink can do. And like I said, I'm only going to show you a couple of things today. We're definitely going to look at these inks in a little bit more depth in a future Tip Tuesday video, so keep an eye out for that. So first of all, I'm literally just going to spritz all of my cardstock from a bit of a distance. So if I just lightly spray this, and this is a really lovely thing to do for the backgrounds of projects. I'm going to give this a couple of seconds to dry and allow the alcohol to evaporate. It's a bit early to be sniffing that. Now hopefully the camera is picking up the absolutely gorgeous shimmer that this has put all over the piece of cardstock that I have here. And again, you know, once the alcohol all evaporates, your cardstock will dry down nicely. You can always pop it under something heavy just to get the curl back out again. But this is a really lovely way to add a lot of shimmer to a project very quickly without sort of painting it on, say from a Wink of Stella brush or something along those lines. But a really nice way to add shimmer there. And then I'm going to pop that to one side. I'll bring it back again once it has dried down a little bit more. And the other thing you can do using the Shimmer Painter in this is if you actually unscrew the cap, and you can use this to add some fun little ink splatters, hopefully on the project that you're aiming for, not just around the rest of the room. Let's try that again. There we go. So just tapping the end over the project here. And you can get a really fun splatter effect on your cardstock. And let me just wipe myself before I end up with glitter everywhere. And again, as that dries, you'll be left with just the ink and these gorgeous shimmery ink spots in the background of your project, or whatever it is that you decide to use this on. So this is just, like I said, a very quick Tip Tuesday video today on the different sort of colouring products that we have available in the current catalogue. So that was using the Shimmer Ink over there. We have our dried down pretty much piece of cardstock here using the re-inker. And then we have all of the things that we've done with all of the various sponges. So the sponge Daubers, the stamping sponges, and also the sponge Brayers as well. So as you can see, lots of different ways of adding colour and ink to your project that isn't just stamping, and hopefully this has given you lots of ideas of other things that you can do to really sort of mix up your crafting and card making. Thank you for joining me today. I really hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a like, let me know that you've watched and maybe that you're going to use some of these techniques. Pop some comments down below. How would you use this gorgeous piece of shimmery black cardstock that I've created here? I have cut this specifically for a card front, so let me know what ideas you have for that for me. Do consider subscribing to the channel. I post videos very regularly, 2 videos a week with tips and tricks along with project tutorials, how to put together some really stunning cards and other papercraft projects. All of the products that I've used today and more are available through my Stampin' Up store, and I'll pop a link to that in the description box below so you can shop these and any products at your leisure. And if you are based in the UK and you don't currently have a Stampin' Up demonstrator and you would like a copy of our physical catalogues, again there'll be a link in the description box for you directly to the web form on my website where you can request a copy of those, and I'll get those straight out into the post for you. I'd be happy to do that. I always enjoy sitting down, looking through those with a nice cup of tea and a wish list beside me, and looking at all of the inspirational ideas that are in that catalogue. So thank you again for joining me today, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.